the content marketing manager here at Blumira. I'm joined by Christopher Ross, who's a CISO at Clover Health, and Nato Riley, who is an integrations engineer at Blumira. We're really excited today to talk to you about how, basically comparing AlienVault versus Blumira and comparing the features, the challenges that people are facing, and how Blumira sort of fills those gaps that people are facing when they have AlienVault as a SIM provider. So we'll be going through, some of the real life experiences that Christopher has had when switching from AlienVault to Blumira, and Nato as well has really a lot of hands-on experience with AlienVault. So excited to talk about this and get started. And before we get into it, Christopher, do you mind introducing yourself a little bit? I know you've had a really interesting background. You're a pilot, and you've changed from the pilot industry to cybersecurity. So tell me a little bit about how that happened.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I used to be a commercial pilot in that industry in aviation, and then of course market changes, things happen, life happened, and I switched over. I had done some security things in the past, and an opportunity came up. And during my interview, actually, they came and said, well, the CEO is going on this flight and there's some issues, we don't know what to do. And I answered all their questions and they said, you're hired. And that's how my first jump into the real security world happened many, many years ago. And so with that, I got into the information cybersecurity side, and on it went. So I was at Nokia, and then later at Microsoft, T-Mobile, small company called Eagleview, and now Clover Health. So really enjoying it there. And Clover Health has been interesting because it's had a startup kind of mentality, and we recently IPO'd. So lots of great challenges and things happening. So little background on me.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Nato, you've also worked at some telecom companies as well, right? So you have that shared experience.
So I come from Verizon. Like way back, that was my first introduction to technology, is working at them before I got into IT.
And you've had a lot of interesting experiences with getting into cybersecurity, with your YouTube channel. Is it Nato as Code? Is that the YouTube channel that you run?
That's right.
You have a lot of great advice on getting into the cybersecurity space. So tell me a little bit about your experience and what you do at Blumira.
So first, I guess, in terms of Blumira, I do work on integrations, and then I also help set up the integrations for customers. So when someone wants to, well, that's the thing about Blumira is there's actually people there, and we actually do things for you and with you. But anyways, so some of my background that led to this is I do come from just a long background in SIM in general. Like most SIM platforms, I've either taught, engineered directly to some capacity, or like deployed hundreds of times, depending on the solution. So, that brought me to, inevitably wanting to come and build I don't know, I guess I've just always built SIM, and then I like building SIM. So here I am.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have both of you join. So thank you so much. And it's interesting because we have the CISO perspective as well as, and you have hands-on experience too, of course, but Nato, you can kind of really get into the weeds of, management and integration. So I think it's really interesting that we have these two backgrounds too, because we'll have two perspectives that can speak to, slightly different experiences, but, also shared experiences as well. So definitely excited to dig into this with both of you guys. Perfect. So Clover Health, Christopher, talk to me a little bit about, what your tech stack is, what your story is, how did you come to, you were using AlienVault for a while. How did you come to realize that AlienVault wasn't working for you?
So when I joined Clover Health, AlienVault existed. We had it, but not for that long, but it was there. And I said, okay, I've heard of this product. Let me give it a try. And honestly, I don't like to talk bad about things, but honestly, it was just frustrating for me. A lot of the security engineers who work on it had frustrations. There was issues with response time, not only from service, but if you're trying to run a report or do something, the spinning wheel was nothing worse than the spinning wheel to make you pull your hair out. So that was a bit of an issue for us. And then it seemed that every time you wanted something, oh, that module would cost more money. You don't have this. The truth in pricing was a little difficult to follow. And so we really wanted something. We were a small team. We were 4 people. And so, of course, I had to roll my sleeves up and get in there as well. And there was no level of support that was an extension of our team. And so we really had to go and search for something out there that met all of our checkboxes. AlienVault looked good on paper, but the value proposition when we got down to it wasn't quite there for us. So it's, yes, this is what's advertised, but what am I have to pay for to get that level? And some of the things, just difficulty. Being a CISO, I don't always get hands-on in the tools. And so if I had to go in there after being out of it for a while, I was like, the UX UI might not be as intuitive as I want. In Blumira, I can jump in there. I can be gone forever. In fact, when I first got in there, that was one of the first things I noticed. I said, wow, wait, even a CISO can run a report in here. I don't need to know how to code. I just go into Report Builder, click what I want, select the buttons, and there it is. I can even set up recurring reports, so those come to my inbox all the time. I don't need to bother engineers with questions like that, so I don't drive them crazy either. So a lot of those things were real big game changers. But even before that, when we're in the AlienVault phase, trying to find a good SIM was difficult. And I'll admit, when Blumira said we can do this, that, and the other, I was like, yeah, sure you can. But I was proven wrong. I don't do many of these type of things, but I do stand behind this product. I really enjoy it. I really love what they're offering. The value proposition is real.
Love that. And we're not paying you, I swear.
Yeah, I know.
Sure.
Now, in terms of like the business challenges, were there any other things like going on internally that you were like, all right, this is what we need to check off in terms of those boxes that you were referring to?
Yeah, so obviously, from some of the things we needed, we were a small team and we were under a lot of tight deadlines. So we needed something out of the box ready. We needed something that our people could pick up and use pretty much seamlessly. And we really required help with that lift. It's a new product for us. We need that set up. I know we talked the other day and I had said it took about under a week to get this thing set up. I actually fact checked myself. It took 3 days to get set up and get data flowing. That is unheard of. It's ridiculous. That was just fantastic. And with that, we had usable data right away. And another thing that we really needed to check the box was, we're small, we need help. And the analyst interaction and the analyst monitoring amazes me. That extension of our team allowed us to grow rapidly. And to be honest, we needed something that we could sell to the C-suite, because of course I've got to go as a CISO. I've got to go and get budget for this thing. Why are we switching? What's going on? This was the easiest sell I've ever had as a CISO for a product. It was so easy to compare against other SIMs. It was so easy to show the value proposition. And honestly, a lot of that sometimes seems like just sales pitch for the companies, but this turned out 100% true, 100% accurate.
Excellent. We love that. What other, you mentioned that you were working with AlienVault. Were there any other products that you were evaluating at the time?
We had a few things that came along. Obviously things like Splunk is too big, we can't afford it, we don't have 20 people to work it, things like that. And really, with Blumira, it was simple. We weren't bombarded with a million different facts. It was that here's what it costs, here's what it does, here's what we offer. That made the choice a lot easier. And then again, I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but it's truth in advertising. I am shocked.
Well, it makes my life easier as a marketer, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And I will say, when going through it, there were some things that happened that I wasn't aware of. A lot of bonuses you're getting with this that you may not expect. The honeypot, that's probably not as known by many, but there's this honeypot in there that Blumira monitors and lets us know when there's a problem.
Yep.
Fantastic service. So, all right, sorry, next slide. I'll go on forever if I'm not stopping.
No, it's great. And we'll continue to talk to those challenges and also the pros of Blumira as we go on, but it's great to get that introduction and just understand what we're digging into. So, in terms of security challenges with traditional SIMs, this is probably something that you've seen a lot of, just like the complexity, the alert fatigue, and Nato, I'm sure that you've experienced this as well, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So when describing your average, like traditional SIM, how would you describe that experience?
I mean, traditional SIM for me, in my mind, the first words that come to my head is, all right, I need a team to run this. I need to send them all the training forever. If I need something from the company, by the time I get my answer, that fiscal year is over. 100 people and you're ready to go and you got lots of things, they can work. If you are trying to maximize your budget and you're trying to get the highest value proposition for your dollar, and you can use those dollars on other things, this is the product.
When I think of like conventional SIM, similar kinds of things, SIM is it's whether you're building a security operations center or just building incident response and detection, it's a time-consuming thing that is essentially a data science platform for cybersecurity. And data science in general is a whole skill set that requires skill. And it's kind of like what you were talking about earlier, the whole idea of having to code things. With other SIM solutions, conventional SIM, there's something you're going to have to code, whether you're helping write rules. And even if you get help from someone or get help from like AlienVault services and things like that, like they're there to help you code. But what if you don't have the time or don't want to code? So when I think of conventional SIM, one of the reasons why standing up a conventional SIM deployment is you might spend 3 weeks alone getting the SIM set up, and then another 3 to 6 months getting the rules so that you can use the SIM. So it might not even be usable. I would say the concept of out of the box historically shouldn't exist with other conventional SIMs, but we've tried to actually make that a thing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The tuning piece that was done by your team was incredible. We didn't have to do any of that. That's such a huge lift. And, all those cycles were saved. We didn't have to do it. The team was just like, wow, it's running, it's working. And the priority alerting, so we don't get inundated with a bunch of things, fantastic.
Like while we have to deal with the swimming amounts of code, so Blumira, someone still has to deal with the ocean of code. The difference is we do all of that, so you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, I can park my car, or I can have it valet. This is valet, right? So I don't have to worry. All that is done, and it's really appreciated. Also, I think the ready-to-go integrations really help. So Okta, G Suite, O365, those are just there, instantly happening, so makes it easy.
Absolutely. I love that acronym, the analogy of valet versus park your own car. That's great. And you had talked to the costs of AlienVault a little bit previously. What were some of those hidden costs that you were finding when you were using it?
Just the services. So if you want to use a certain service, then all of a sudden, oh, that's a module we don't have, and now we got to figure out can we get money for this? And it doesn't work that way. For a CISO, we're going for our budget once a year. We're not midway deciding, oh, wait, there's a little feature we didn't have. We came back to you and said, oh, by the way, we don't have this, we have more money. That's not going to fly, right? The truth in pricing with Blumira is, here's what you get. You know what you're in for. And those little extra services, interestingly enough, I have personally, used the support function or messaged Blumira and said, hey, I need this. Can you help me? I can't find it. And they will say, oh, that doesn't exist perhaps today, but it will. And it usually does. And then not only that, they come back with the answer. Someone figures it out and comes back with the answer. Zero cost, didn't have to buy some module. I knew what was going on. Really, I think the bottom line there is they're an extension of our team. They're our trusted partner. They're invested in getting us to succeed. And that doesn't happen with competitors, AlienVault or anyone else. What you're going to have there is sitting on hold or an email that doesn't get responded to.
Right. Yeah. And that also costs extra too, is what I understand, is that, it's an add-on to have phone and email support. But with Blumira, that's all included. And Nato, an interesting point that you were making earlier was that, if you're paying X amount for a SIM, the license is one thing, but then the talent to run that SIM is a totally different number that you're getting, right? Like what's your experience been with that?
Because I come from being on the developer side, conventionally, and building on different sides of different security operations centers, because I used to even work in a security operations center where we'd have the big screens up there and the desks and the different rows. And so like in terms of like building and managing SIM, we had a full squad ready to go. But sometimes, even though we had a full squad of developers and network engineers and admins and everyone who's just like, okay, we're just a full fleet, there would be times when we're just trying to get a report going. And now it's like, okay, well, everyone's slammed dealing with the noise because you end up with false alarms all the time when you're trying to like tune a system. So that's taking up everyone's time, and time is money. Time really is money because you're paying every single person, and most of these people cost six figures. And if they don't, then they might not necessarily, most people who aren't making a certain amount of money who are really good at these things, they're going to go somewhere else anyway. So you have to find a way to retain them too, because if they leave, there goes your knowledge. You got to train someone else. That's expensive. And then you have to have people available to just sit on the phone with support sometimes, and then code while they're sitting on support with the phone. And it can take, realistically, there are times when the back and forth of support could be like 3 months. And sometimes you're like, you know what, we don't have time to deal with this. And then it puts you in a situation where your visibility still isn't set up, still isn't working. So you're just going months without visibility at all while you're paying for the licensing, while you're paying for the people to do it, and you're not even using it.
Oh, yeah. That must be so frustrating. And I didn't even think about the fact that if, someone quits or gets fired or whatever happens, just the chaos that must create if they're, if they handle, the management and maintenance, and it's so involved like that. Like, how do you even overload that, or like outsource that to a different person, or train a whole new person to understand exactly what they've learned over the past few years? That must be really difficult.
You don't lose your knowledge.
Yes, I can touch on that as well, because our team size, like I said in the beginning, was very small. We've tripled in size. We have lots of new people. None of them have required training. That's how effective the UI UX is. I've never taken Blumira training. I know it's out there. I've just never taken it. And I can go in there right now and do everything I need to do. I can run reports. I can solve issues. And even if I have a little trouble with solving the issue, there's a box at the bottom that says, here's what we recommend, and you can message the analyst. I mean, I've never seen that anywhere else like that.
Yeah, that's a great point, is that, the training, although it is available, it's not necessarily required. And you definitely don't need to be, to have that much security expertise to run this, right?
No, and it's one of those things I always say, even to my team when we're designing pages or anything, if it isn't like, a simple product like Apple, they revolutionized the phone because they made big icons you just push.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Blumira's doing here. The CISO can use this. So that's the marketing tag right there.
I love that. Yeah, we were going to start using that one. And, from a CISO perspective, Chris, you mentioned the challenge of having to go to the higher ups with budget at the beginning of every quarter, every year, and the challenge of having add-ons. So can you talk to me a little bit about how the predictability aspect of pricing works in your favor?
Yeah, the predictability of the pricing is amazing, because I can go to them with full value proposition. If I know how it works and it's simple, it's easy for me to sell it, and I can field all their questions. Not only that, included in that value proposition are things like the honeypot, instant integration, the service level, that boutique feel where we are the biggest customer. Yes, I'm not at a large company now, but I get treated equally as if I was at, say, Microsoft. There is no difference. I get that instant service that I used to get there. I get it here. That's hard to say at a lot of places. So when I put all that forward to the C-suite and I said, here's the price, and the price was very attractive compared to AlienVault as well and others, it was a simple sell. They just said, yep, sounds good. Let's get it. And it's an all-in-one package. I don't have to worry about these kind of things. I bought everything I need. I'm good.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then, we had talked about this a little bit earlier, but just the lack of support, like what kind of support did you get from AlienVault when you were using them? Obviously the phone and email can be an add-on, but what was the experience like when you were talking to someone once you did get them on the phone or on email?
I'm going to be honest. This is going to sound horrible for me, but I'm going to be honest. I gave up and never talked to anybody. I just said, I don't have time for this. It's not worth my cycles to what they're paying me to be sitting at this level to do that. And with a small team, I don't have time to have them sitting there either. I'm not paying someone to wait.
Right.
And so that was really one of the drivers of we need to get out of this thing.
Yeah, I don't think that sounds horrible at all. I mean, it's frustrating to, to deal with the back and forth like that. And you have higher priorities that you need to attend to. You can't be expected to just sit on the phone with someone for days.
Yeah, or it's not even just sitting on the phone. It's trying to use the tool and seeing that spinning wheel and waiting, and it's not loading, or it's taking 2 days to run a report.
Yep.
It doesn't
Literally
work.
2 days to run a report. Really? Yes. Yeah. That's not an exaggeration for anyone listening. That's real.
Yeah. I usually just close it and say, whatever, I'm not going to do that. And I've seen that other people I know that have used this have said the same thing. They said, well, there is one problem. It's you have to do things in off hours if you want to make it work properly. No, I don't have time for that.
And Nato, you had used AlienVault for a while, and you had said that at a certain point, your team stopped using it as well. And that's a terrible thing from a cost perspective as well. You're just, thousands of dollars is just going to waste completely, right?
Oh yeah, we'd be doing like forensic reviews or whatever we need to do, and oftentimes, especially if you're waiting on, say, like something with a hot deadline, and you got to get this information over to someone now or soon, and you're like sitting there watching the wheel, and you're like everyone's like, we don't have time for this, and usually folks would just be like, well, can we just get like a CSV, like we can make a spreadsheet with it. And I remember the lawyers would just be like, just send me a CSV, I don't care anymore, just I don't care anymore, just send me a CSV. And then they just take that, and that ended up being what we oftentimes do with AlienVault, because the time investment, if you really don't have the time to tune or the people to tune, and even let's say that you get it working well, because you have to make sure that the data footprint is appropriately sized. If you start getting more data, then you'll have a system that was working, but since you have to manage the systems yourself and there's no one managing those systems for you, let's say that it starts to get overloaded, or what they would call oversubscribed is the term, then you all of a sudden, it's like maybe it was working yesterday, now those reports that you were running no longer work, and now you have to spend who knows how much time getting it to work again.
And I do want to point out that, we are kind of picking on AlienVault here. That's not our intention. I think that we're kind of just speaking to the challenges and the frustrations that a lot of SIM providers have, given to their customers among the years. Like, is that accurate to say from, both of your experiences with different SIMs?
I would say yes. And yeah, I'm not trying to pick on AlienVault. It's just that we had when we got here. And I've seen that from others as well. Like I said, I was surprised when we got onto Blumira at the service levels, how fast the interface works. Also, the idea from a CISO perspective, if someone in the C-suite says to me, hey, I need this information right now, or an incident happens and I need quick data, I can't wait for a spinning wheel. And in the dashboard feature, for anyone who hasn't used it, there's the different levels. There's the analyst level, there's the responder level, you've got a holistic overview level, and then of course that manager level. So I can quickly look through without having to find someone who may be busy or off, get the data I need without bothering an engineer on our side or even at Blumira. And then I can run a report while that's happening, get the results in minutes, not days. And that's, as a CISO, that's critical, especially when C-suite's talking.
And if you have a whole fleet of developers, like for some people who have the resources and the time for custom and things like that, like you can do a lot of things if you have the money with some of these other platforms, but it kind of comes down to like you're going to pay for that custom work, and it's not just in cash but in time too, all of it really. So it's just some things to consider. So it's like a massive enterprise with a massive team who can accommodate certain things. That might be a different situation. But especially if you're a smaller team, or even if you're a sizable team and you just don't necessarily want that time to be invested there, it's a massive undertaking when there are ways to not invest that overtime into SIM, realistically.
Yeah.
I'd add to that too. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'd add to that too. I've worked at those large companies, multinationals, and that customization can happen, but then you run into the problem of, wait, the person who wrote that customization is gone from our company.
Yeah.
And now what? right? Whereas
Um,
with Blumira, all the knowledge management is handled there, it's off the shelf ready. So
That's a good point. Are there any particular customizations that you requested? Can you kind of tell me about the experience of that, requesting that through Blumira,
yeah,
Christopher?
absolutely. So when we got on board Blumira, it was not as mature as it is now. It's very mature now. And at the time, we needed something whitelisted. And I said, I can't find this in the tool. And I sent them a message. And literally, I was surprised because a minute and 30 seconds later or so, like it was literally that fast, they responded, oh, don't worry, we've taken care of it for you, and we'll add that feature later. So problem solved, long-term solution solved. I can honestly say that it is that sort of boutique feel. If you need something and it makes sense for their business, they will add it. And you don't have to worry behind the scenes, they can make magic happen.
And one thing I'll
Mhm.
say, like from actually like working with the Blumira like engineering team and all of that, that's pretty fun. Is I just remember like even before, like when I was talking, I was like, well, how like would we be able to add different things as we go, and like how do you like to do all of those things? Like, well, we just like to grow with everyone, so when we get customers, we just like to just like grow together. So that way, it's because if you get a sim, it can take 3 years to mature the sim. But let's say that everyone works with a centralized solution like this, then everyone grows together in a way, which is something that I haven't really seen anyone try to do at sim, and it's actually happening, which is something that from the inside is actually neat to watch. So I'll just say that from like an internal view that is of things that are kind of interesting, is kind of fun because it's something that like drew me to want to like be like, well, I want to work on that. That sounds pretty cool.
And it's that crowdsourcing kind of idea, because I see our thoughts and questions going into new releases, new developments, and then your other customers do stuff, and I was like, wow, I never thought of that. That's great. And now I get the benefit of that support as well.
Everyone literally wins together, and I've never seen someone try to do that with a sim platform in my life. And I once again, I've worked with sim for like over a decade, like technologies in general. So for me, that it's a very unusual thing if you've never seen that after like over 10 years even of just like doing the same thing over and over again.
Absolutely. Those are great points too. And Nato, you had spoken to this point earlier, the fact that it takes, 3 years to mature a sim, but also the tuning and the configuration that it's required with a traditional sim can be pretty time consuming. Can you explain like maybe some of the tasks that go into that? I know that if you listed everything, we'd probably be here for a few hours.
I would say the ones that are the most obvious, like when you're working with a sim, is like, let's say that you go and you purchase a sim. You're like, okay, so I've purchased AlienVault, and I'll put it this way, it's not that these solutions don't necessarily have a place, because once again, if you have time for development, if you're building like an ongoing development project that you have 2 years to work on before it's even functional, okay, well, that might have a purpose somewhere. And I have weird little projects like that. But for someone who's trying to get security, you don't have 2 years to wait till you can have security, or 3 months to have security. So when you first set up a system, the first thing that you generally have to do is just set up your endpoints, which you have to do with anything. But it doesn't stop there. Once you have your endpoint set up, you have to go and make sure that like, okay, so let's test all of the existing parsing that's in place. There's no one who's going to, test the parsing templates, because they're designed to parse things that look similar to what other people have seen before, but that means it might not actually work, which means that you might have to go in there after everything's running. Then you just have to manually look at hundreds of specific little teeny tiny rules that you've never heard of. And if you're not trained in it, then it's kind of like trying to learn a new language, like trying to learn like, I don't know, like Latin or something like that. You're just like looking at it. And I remember like if you're new to sim and haven't even had like 2 years of experience, that all by itself can be overwhelming, because now you have to make sure that like you're bringing in all these logs, and you have to learn all these different rules, and then you have to do what's called like system tuning, which means you have to go tell each thing how much RAM it's allowed to use. If too much RAM's getting used, then you have to go and like literally readjust things at that granular level, like readjust like the data flows how many nodes are being processed for something. You might have to be the one who's managing and manning the cluster. Like, I mean, we could go down this long laundry list, writing regular expression rules all day long. And I remember working in a lab where I would literally work with folks just like parsing like logs all day long. And that's what we did. Or like, I remember when I was working with some solutions, we'd have people who already had things parsed, but there's always new things that you need to parse. And so then I'd go and they'd pay extra hours, and then I'd be literally out there for 3 months just writing new parsing rules. And I'd just be sitting there consulting with these people, and they're like, okay, well, I'm gonna be, don't worry, I'll be here for 3 months. I'm just gonna be in this.
How is your mental health doing in those
terrible
days?
Well, because you're alone most of the time, in a dark corner with code, and that's all you get. And so you get very isolated. You lose all your friends and family. No.
Oh man, let's go down the deep dark rabbit hole that is parsing logs.
Traveling, yeah.
But it's actually, that's it. You make a good point, and I'm curious, Christopher, to hear the CISO perspective of this, because I'm sure you're tasked with hiring people all the time. What is it like managing someone who is tasked with those responsibilities?
Yeah, the good thing is, as an extension of our team, we don't need as many resources because Blumira is doing a lot of that heavy lift. So that has saved us immensely. I will say that we're 100% cloud. So our company is 100% cloud. We've got 100% remote workers. We always have been, even before COVID. So we've got some cutting edge and sort of unusual things. We use some unusual tools, and all of them have been integrated into Blumira seamlessly. Now, we couldn't have done that without Nato and his team, obviously. We're using Zscaler and other things like that, and it's all reporting in. And in fact, they report to us usually before we catch it. So I'll get a message from an analyst like, hey, this looks weird. I'm like, this is fantastic. So we really haven't, like I said, the heavy lift has been on Blumira, and they do it at such an affordable price. I don't want to say raise your prices, you're charging too little, but you might be.
Well, that's a whole different discussion. But and what is it like? It must be tough to hire people where you're just like, and by the way, your job is going to be sitting in a dark corner parsing logs all day. How does that sound?
Oh yeah, no, we how do you hire people like that? There's a huge demand for security people right now, and that also helps us in our hiring. We don't have people having to do that all the time. We have a lot of help from our trusted partner, and so it makes our value proposition to those users. A lot of them here, we have these unique tools, and some of them say, well, what's Blumira? I haven't heard of that, fairly new. And I tell them, and they're like, oh, I'm super interested. So they want to try new things. They want to try these new tools. So it really does assist us in that effort.
Absolutely. And I'm sure it allows you to focus on more strategic things as well, right?
All day. Yeah, no, that's the big part. And like I said, the security team, the engineering team, they had their thoughts about our other SIMs and things like that. Nobody complains about it. I have never heard a bad thing about it. And that makes my life easier, because as a CISO, that's all you get. This tool drives me crazy. Can we change this tool? And I don't want to change tools every year. No one said that about this. So that's
right. Right. So if there was something wrong with it, you would probably know.
Oh, they would tell me. I would hear about it all day.
Right. Yeah. NATO's. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Christopher.
I was gonna say, Nato, on your end, I mean, is that something you hear from other customers as well? I'm sure it is. That engineers who actually are in this thing every day enjoy it.
Oh yeah, because it's I do hear that sort of thing, and one of the things that I do run into is I've seen folks do what I do when I first saw Blumira, where it's easy to overcomplicate it, because if you've ever worked with the SIM in the past, you're like, oh, it's going to be super complicated because it's a SIM, right? And that's usually like, that was immediately, I remember, I think my first 2 months, like working with the team, I was like, well, but they're like, oh yeah, it's all centralized. I'm like, this is amazing. And so like really from the customer standpoint, by the time it gets to the customer, and while there's tons of chaos under the hood, and in terms of like, got to do the coding, got to do the CI/CD, the GitOps things that the team does, and all those things, and the things that, the customer doesn't even have to know what it is, how it works. They don't even have to know any of that. They don't have to have any of those skills. But with other SIMs, you do have to have like some degree of that in your own team with some of those skills. And so I've seen folks come in and be like, well, but this is gonna be super complicated, right? And then they try it and they're like, oh, that's it? It's like, yeah, that's it. It's like, that's really it? They're like, wow, it just works? We're like, yeah, it just works. They're like, I don't have to tune it or anything. And like, no, we do that part. We get a lot of that.
So true. Like I said, when I jumped in there, I could use it. Our previous product, I got in there and I was like, how many manuals do I have to read? And, and then as soon as I become not proficient because I don't use it every day, then I can't use it again. And I have to get training again. No, I can. This is simple. Honestly, for anyone on the call, it's really point and click.
I think one thing that can confuse people too is if you're used to SIM and used to alert fatigue, where you like see an ocean of things and then you move over to Blumira, it can surprise people when they're like, I don't see anything yet. It's like, well, that's because you haven't had anything happen. That's probably a good thing. And then when something does happen, it's at a rate that people can keep up with, where it's like, if you get an alert, you don't have like 500 alerts to try to like dig through and figure out what any of these mean. Things kind of like come out where it's like, whatever does come to you probably does matter. And then the things that are usually white noise, they do a really good job, especially on the security team and the parsing team, of like really keeping unnecessary white noise away. And then if a customer runs into something that is a false alarm, we even tune that. We'll tune that too. You name it, but you don't have to do it yourself is the catch.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I have to laugh when you say that, because about a month ago, I asked one of the security engineers, I said, this honeypot feature, is it working? I think it's broken. There's nothing happening. And then he said, no, it's actually working great. There's just nothing going on, which is a great thing. And I was like, oh, okay. And it's because they do have a lot of time to focus on the real alerts. All the white noise is honestly filtered out. All the background stuff is gone.
So we focus on the high fidelity and really just getting to the point. I'm a person who doesn't like wasting time. So I personally like just like getting to the point with things. And I know like for busy people, especially like executives, people at the C level and things like that, it's like, you just want to get to the point. You have enough going on. You don't need more than you already have going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Something that you were talking about, Nato, earlier was just, the experience of trying to build a compliance suite with a previous tool and how it took you like 8 months. And that wasn't even without like testing it. What was that like? Can you talk a little bit to that experience?
Yeah. So, I've spent a lot of time just building all kinds of things, but at one point I was building a more modern design for like compliance architectures and compliance suites and things like that. And from just like a sheer time perspective, compliance is really advanced, SIM is really advanced. And so you have to literally just go and read through these like mind-numbing legal forms and know everything about them, where it's like I had to know everything about like GDPR, PCI, NIST, ISO, and you name it, up to 120 different compliances, and then learn how they all work well together. And then like write rules that are going to make all of these things somehow work well together. And it took 8 months just to get like the base out, where it's like, okay, well, we have something out now and it exists, it's in for review. And then after it was out, then it's like, okay, well, now we just need to make sure that it works, because we don't even know if it works yet, because in theory, while it should, it's like, now we have to go and get some log sources to test and some log samples to test. And then you have to test it all with sample logs, and then sample logs aren't the same as production logs. So once it goes into production, you still don't know if it's going to work yet either. And now it's been a year, maybe a year and a half.
Crossing your fingers. Praying to the SIM gods.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Clover is in a federally regulated industry. We're bound by HIPAA. We recently went public, so we have SOX. And also, we recently started doing DCE, which is direct contracting. So we switched to becoming the business associate. And long story short, that means a lot of vendors, or not vendors, we are the vendor. A lot of companies now are coming to us and doing security assessments. And sometimes they want evidence. And to your point, I can immediately jump in myself as a CISO to the reporting and say, yep, here we go. And I can get that evidence quickly. Goes miles, especially if OCR comes auditing us for HIPAA.
Oh, yeah.
It does help us keep us compliant and have that evidence on hand.
That's great to hear. And can you talk a little bit, Christopher, about your experience with deployment? You said it was what, a few hours that it took? Like what did that entail exactly?
It was
Not much,
literally,
right?
we were getting usable data in 3 days. That means things were connected, sensors were out there, and usable data was coming in, and analysts on the Blumira side were giving us insight on that. 3 days.
You didn't have to spend a year and a half?
What's that?
You didn't have to spend a year and a half?
Right. And then after that year and a half, it was only partially working. We didn't have all the features going, and it was too complex for it. We didn't use it. Yeah, no, that's not a thing. Usable data in 3 days. When it says, I can see on the screen, it says G2 fastest implementation. That's no joke. I honestly cannot think of any other tool or sim that, any tool, forget about just sim, any tool that's been up and running properly in 3 days. So I stand behind what this G2 thing is saying. And we didn't need, like I said, at the time when we got this set up, we were 4 people busy doing 100 other things. We had very, very, very light lift. You know, this is a low drag project for us. It was fantastic.
Have there been a lot of experiences that you've had in the past where, like, you know, getting a tool deployed takes so long that you end up just ditching it altogether? Has that ever happened to you?
I'm not really a quitter, so I'd probably try a little harder than I should on some.
Right.
And at some point, you've got to do that business decision. What makes sense for the business? Those are sunk costs, right? So if I get into a project, it's not what they advertised. Yeah, absolutely. You've got to look at this and say, I need to get out of here, because the amount of time we're spent on it is the sunk cost. Going forward, how much more time do we want to spend on this? How many years are we going to do this? No, that can't happen, right? If only every implementation was this easy. I've seen it where we get it set up and then it's only 50% utilized because we don't know how to do it, or the people using it need more training or manuals, or this new hire doesn't know how to use it. Blumira solved those issues. Out of the box ready, instant integrations. And like I said, I use it and I have no training on it, and I use every function in there. And even if I didn't, I can put in a support and within minutes I'll have that answer. So
to that point, I used to go out of my way with every other sim I worked with when working with different types of clientele. And I would always tell people to never call it a sim, an out-of-the-box solution anywhere on this known planet, because it would cause misunderstandings that would cause bigger problems later. But really, Blumira is the first time I've ever seen a sim that I actually would say, yeah, this is out of the box. It's the only out of the box sim solution I've touched a lot. So to me, that's like a very bizarre thing, where me saying out of the box ready and me saying, yeah, I would agree with that. I would never have agreed with that with other sim solutions that I've worked with in the past.
And I mean, it was out of the box for us. I'm sure on Blumira's side, our setup was not out of the box. We have some interesting stack, but on our end, seamless.
And
that's a good point.
Sorry, go ahead, Nato.
So exactly what he just said. It's on our end, it's not out of the box, but what he just said is kind of what we hope for, because it's like well, we'll just do all the things for them. And then the idea is that then that way for the customer, it's out of the box. And for us, you know, we still have to do it like conventional sim things, but it's like when you have a bunch of like heavily experienced people and like advanced engineers and things like that, at least the company doesn't have to go and figure out how to hire those advanced engineers. Kind of goes back to that.
Right. The good thing is you don't have to think about it or hear about it or see it. You know, we're working, but you know, you don't have to worry.
And that's a huge savings for us, because hiring someone who's highly skilled in one specific area like sim and sim tuning, I mean, that's not in our budget.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And what was the process, Christopher, of, you know, switching from AlienVault to Blumira? Was it pretty seamless for you?
Very seamless. Yeah. Once we got set up, Blumira really took the lead and said, hey, here's our team. We'll have a meeting. Here's what we do. Here's how we do it. And we basically followed their lead and it was done. Great. I mean, Nato, would you say that was pretty much how it all happened?
Yeah, pretty much. It's you turn on the stuff and then we go in and we just like flip on a bunch of switches. And then if we do have to do some custom coding and things like that, then we have a little process in place. So it's like, okay, so let's get these things in, and then basically people just start working on it right away.
And I really like how Blumira and Nato and the team took the time to come back maybe on day 2 and say, hey, how do you do this? How does your business work? So we can make sure this works for you. Very unusual. You're not going to hear a competitor come to you and say that. They're going to say, you bought it, you set it up the way you need.
Yeah, that's a good point. And let's talk a little bit about some of the features that you get in that complete package with Blumira, those prioritized alerts that we talked about. And then the playbooks are really helpful. Christopher, what's been your experience with those playbooks? Have you used those at all?
The team has, and I forgot all about those, but yes, those are fantastic. So even if you have a new person to the team, or someone late at night who isn't 100% familiar, playbooks are there. It goes step by step. That is a huge value add.
Awesome. And let's go into the UX a little bit and talk about what you see when a security alert pops up on your screen. You've got the easy way to contact the Blumira support team, which is great. Nato, can you talk a little bit about what sort of features you see here?
Yeah, so some interesting things. So one of the most, I would say the most important feature in a SIM platform, just in my personal opinion, is an easy case management system of sorts. And what I mean by that is having it so that, let's say that you get an alarm, let's say that you get an alert, whatever that may be, whatever kind of alarm or alert, doesn't matter. But if it's something that's really important or something that everyone needs to deal with or react to, it should be really easy to assign this case, whatever is going on, to someone specific who's supposed, so that you're not just either sending it to everyone or having to make it like complicated to figure out how to like communicate and get everyone interacting. So what we do is right there where it shows like workflows, maybe you get something that's really important where you do have like an Office 365 rule inbox creation that was unexpected. You didn't do this. You can go in and quickly just choose this workflow option, and it's going to have a list of response playbooks where then you can just say, well, add me to this. And then you can go down kind of where it shows, could you help us understand what that means down in that little section? You can write out whatever you need to whoever, and then when everyone else gets assigned, that's there for everyone to communicate with. And then you can attach emails or any other evidence or anything that's there to support that, and then use every single alert as a communication tool with the team too, where this now is an item that is portable, and you can get that to who needs to, and make it easier to keep response together. And then it also contains the log info, like if you were to scroll down in there, which I know that's an image, but it shows you like information that's relevant too, so that you can know like, is there a username associated with this, or whatever makes the most sense, whatever's relevant.
I wouldn't mind commenting on this page too, because when I was taking my MBA, my marketing and service management brain kicked in when I first saw this, and I said, this is great UX UI. The flow is here. I can walk in. I don't need to be an engineer to do this. I mean, honestly, someone on the street who doesn't know that much about security might be able to see this. It's well laid out. You've got your threat levels, who's respond to, so you've got the audit trail. The playbook tells you what to do. Our threat analysis gives you that instant, okay, good, I've got that third set of eyes on it, looking at it. And then contact Blumira. So all well done. It reminds me of an Amazon page. Everyone knows on Amazon, the button's yellow, it's on the right-hand side, it's clean, it gives the description. That's what I'm getting here, right? So this is easy to use late at night. We have our SOC, our third-party SOC, whatever. If they had to jump in and look at this without knowing our company very well, the information's right here. They know what to do, and they have someone to reach out to.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. And and everything is in one place, like you were saying, Nato and Christopher, it must be so much easier to just be organized and efficient that way, right?
Yeah, and I would say that assign a responder piece is great for me as audit trail and wait, I need to go. So you're covering the proactive piece, which is all here, but you've also thought about the reactive piece down the road 5 years from now. Who worked on this? What happened? It's all there. Yeah. Sorry, Nato, I think I jumped on your
No, that's great. That's a great point. Really appreciate that.
Oh, it's all good stuff, definitely.
And Christopher, what was the experience like that you had with our free trial? What did that kind of set in stone for you? The fact that you wanted to work with Blumira?
Absolutely. So we did the free trial. We were still looking around. I was still very skeptical because vendors like to tell you that they can do all these things and they can't. And I think on the second day of the trial, we were already I was getting the PO ready to write up and trying to get the C-suite sold on this thing. So it didn't take long. And again, that comes from that whole UX, UI, that user experience, and jumping in there and saying, wow, this is simple, this is clean. And the level of support that was coming from Blumira was unprecedented. So anyone out there looking at this, I would suggest give the trial a call, give the trial a try, because honestly, it's set up and running. If nothing else, just look at the UX, UI. You'll be impressed.
And how long did it take you to deploy it?
3 days. 3 days. Well, it was deployed, but we had usable data up and running in 3 days.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I really, really appreciate
the other part is, for this level, I just got to get this in. This level of service, you're not paying. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, for this level of service that you're getting, this is like a luxury hotel. Like I said, the valet type service. You're not paying that type of money. This is a very affordable solution for the value proposition and value you're getting.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for talking with us here. It's always great to meet and speak with a happy customer. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and how you've been using Blumira. It's been really great to hear some of the things that you've really enjoyed working with our product. So thank you so much for joining us, Christopher. And Nato, you've been a pleasure as always to speak with, and thank you so much for your insight.
Yeah, thank you for the discussion. It's been great.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you. And I would like to thank everyone at Blumira as well, because honestly, you're making our jobs easier. You're making me look good as a CISO. So I appreciate that.
Of course. Well, I hope you have a great rest of the day, Nato, Christopher, and all the attendees. Thank you so much for joining us. We will continue to host live streams like this, so stay tuned, and we'll hopefully see you sometime soon.